everybody. My name is Tyler Rabinowitz. I'm really excited to be here today with Laine Elliott. A little bit about myself. I'm a queer writer, director, and producer. I'm currently based out in Palm Springs, but I grew up in Florida. With my work, my goal is A, to show that the queer experience is not limited just to our sexuality, and B, to prove that our stories are not niche, but rather that they're universally relatable. And I love to kind of explore these ideas wearing various hats and telling various kinds of stories.
Yeah, my name is Laine Elliott. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a queer and trans filmmaker, currently based in Brooklyn, but I'm from the southeastern part of Virginia originally. And yeah, I make short films, mostly experimental work that explores a lot of times lesbian relationships and the trans experience and connection, as well as I'm really interested in kind of bringing genre into queer stories because a lot of times it's really overlooked. And I'm also a production designer as well, and I production designed Tyler's film. How I got to Subway before I directed, I think, anything. So,
tell me what the first project was that made you fall in love with filmmaking.
I feel like I was like in love with the idea of filmmaking like before I even directed anything. Like I really loved just like watching movies and how they emotionally impacted me, and I think that that's where that love still lies. And then probably my I'm Glad It Was You, which showed at NFFTY, was probably the first time I made something that I really felt proud of the process. Yeah, it was actually my Sight and Sound final. It was an experimental kind of documentary about me and my partner's first couple months of a relationship that kind of like followed going back to like places that we had been to and like animating us like on top of it. And getting to like tell a narrative that kind of blended both of ours. It was a big like challenge, and it was definitely different from anything I've done, but I felt like that was where I had like my hands the most in it, and it feels like something that it was like what ended up on screen is like I worked really hard to get to that point, and I don't think I'd done that with a project before.
My project that I guess would fall into this was, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm even talking about this, but when I was in high school, I was lucky to go to an art school in Florida, and I did like my first project that I had like conceived of fully, just like scripts to screen, like it kind of became my heart and soul, was this little short film. I was like 15. It was called A Piece of Cake, and it was literally about this like kid who was just like baking a cake for his mom to surprise her before she came home for her birthday, and it was set to like the Blue Danube. Like it was
a classic.
So, and my mom was the mom, and I remember just like putting everything my little heart had into this, and I remember like crying before filming because I like left the battery for our mini DV camera and like I didn't know where to go buy one. Like I think we went to Radio Shack or something, and I just remember it playing for the first time on a screen. I didn't even know what a film festival was back then, but it was like we had like a student showcase at our high school, and I remember just like hearing the audience reactions to little moments and just like feeling empowered in this really surreal way, right? Because I don't know about you, but like I was like quite shy in high school and closeted and nervous and afraid of my own shadow. And so it's like, oh my gosh, the like things that are going on in my mind are, there's a way I can connect with the world around me, even though I currently feel really isolated and alone and a stranger in the world I live in.
In high school, the films, I made a couple shorts in high school just like on my own. And I remember whenever they would show anywhere, like I couldn't like watch them. I would never, and I feel like I can watch my films now. Like once I think I'm Glad It Was You, the first one that I could like actually watch when it was screening for reactions.
Talk to me about the process of Together.
Yeah, so it was my intermediate film at NYU, which is kind of like the first like big boy film I feel like they let you do, where they give you like a nice color camera, and it's typically like a 5 to 10 minute film people make, and you do it in a semester. So I started writing my script and then we shot it in November, and I got mono 2 weeks before the shoot that then like peaked the week before the shoot. And then like my grandfather died and my cat died, and they wouldn't let us like bring our equipment into our location the night before. It was just like every like thing that could have like gone wrong in like the couple weeks up to it went wrong. They wouldn't let us bring just like a big bubble tent, and they wouldn't let us bring that in to build into the location the night before. The like building security wouldn't let us bring it in. We were assembling the bubble on location because we were like, we can't like it was too big. So it was like basically a lot of vinyl and PVC. And what they got concerned about was we had a couple of 2x4s that we built like a little extension onto the bed just to like have the bubble rest on it. It was literally just like two 2x4s together on each end. So simple. But they were like, that's building materials.
Oh my God.
You can't bring it in because we can't say you're not going to do construction. So I stayed up all night with my art director or my production designer and cutting it into like as small pieces as possible, and then putting it inside of the equipment cases, and then walking that in the next morning.
It's not really a short film shoot or any film shoot without those moments, right? There's got to be at least one.
With How I Got to the Moon by Subway, what were like, did you have any like production challenges for that, or like any like special like tools or resources that you had to like bring to like get it done?
I mean, I had zero money at all for it. I was really lucky though to be a part of one of the early like classes of the Jacob Burns Film Center's Creative Culture program, which has really grown a lot since. Could not afford to spend like anything extra, and I also like didn't want to crowdfund. I think I was scared of crowdfunding, frankly. Yeah, so that was like a major natural challenge, is just like, how do I do this thing that is all I want to make right now, that was coming from a really personal place. I think the video effects aspect of the piece was definitely the like greatest logistical challenge. I'm so grateful to you and everyone else that was like a part of the team who, you know, we all kind of banded together to like kind of set ourselves up for success as best we could in pre-production. And that project taught me just to be courageous I'm like kind of a shy, introverted person at the end of the day, right? And so I had to really recognize, once I committed to actually trying to achieve that vision, it wasn't going to be as far-fetched as I thought it was. It wasn't as daunting once I actually started putting in the work of like, okay, how do I do this tangibly? You know, I just started looking out really through Instagram to find VFX artists that were, you know, also coming up that maybe would see some value in being able to collaborate on this, like the same way that I was trying to, you know, create a bit of a calling card or a next step for myself as a director, see if there's someone who just like genuinely connected to and or like wanted to take a hand at like 3D camera movement and stuff. And there was a stage where I was still a little like shy about kind of believing in myself that I could like do what was in my head. And there was a point where I was trying to like teach myself VFX and like made this really, really whack, like really, really strange kind of comp attempt of the VFX that to me in my head I was so proud of all the time I put into it, where I was like, yeah, this is it. And I remember like someone making a comment of like, those are great placeholders, like I really get what you're going for, like when's it gonna be finished? And then in my head I was like, damn, like you're right. It's not done yet.
Oh no.
That's the beauty of a short though, like, and the beauty of Vimeo's replace file feature. You can just constantly tweak and update things.
And I feel like it became in the cut like more improv, like you used a lot more of that improv than I would think from like the original
Script.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really a credit to the actors and just being so game to improvise. You know, whenever something's feeling a little bit left of center of what I was like striving for when we're on set, I really love to like give my actors the freedom to go play and see what comes of that, and be like, you know, here's our point A, here's our point B emotionally, but let's try a take where, you know, let's just see what comes to mind. Or if they're, you know, walking down a street, just let them riff and chat the way they would as these two characters and just see what they say. And sometimes that's like gold. You never know what's gonna happen, but if they're embodying the characters, I think there's a lot of truth they bring to the table that I could have never prescribed on paper. But tell me about Together. What sort of challenge it? Well, you talked a little bit about challenges, but what else? And what?
The more, well, it was definitely a big VFX component. Well, my dream was that it was just going to be like a wonderful, beautiful, practical dome. And then we were going to just add VFX like glow to it and kind of make it shiny. And then when I started looking into like what it would cost to like get a kind of dome like that would be structurally sound, it was in the like tens of thousands of dollars. Like it was just like so far beyond.
Oh my God.
So then it was kind of back to the drawing board. Like I experimented with tents, like with like cutting the lining off of like a regular camping tent and like replacing it, and it collapsed. And so we eventually ended up with this PVC kind of like skeleton, and then wrapped it all around it. That was our biggest VFX challenge. I'm still glad that we made it practical, because my reasoning was that the actors, they interact with the bubble, like they hit it, they touch it. And I was like, if we don't have something practical, we're never going to be able to like put something over this. Their hand's just going to go right through it. They're not going to be able to, you know exactly where that fake wall is. And I think that those shots would have been so difficult to do if we hadn't done that. And then COVID hit, and that's actually when my partner, who's an animator, very kindly was looking to learn more After Effects. My VFX artist, Michael, both of them worked on it. It went a lot of different ways, because I didn't think it was going to need like 2 VFX artists doing like a month of free work on it. But yeah, I guess resources for that would be people that owe you favors. I mean, that's the number one thing I feel like in filmmaking is Michael, who's also a wonderful filmmaker. I had PD'd his film, which was a lot of hours, and he was like, all right, like I owe you this amount of my expertise, and he very kindly did it.
As difficult, but you know, there clearly should be a better system or ecosystem in place. Like, we shouldn't all have to be like fighting tooth and nail to like do what we love to do, and kind of like relying on the kindness of not strangers but friends, you know. And at the same time, I think that there is sort of a community I found that you start to gravitate towards as you kind of each help each other out. And I feel, you know, I'm finding just like a lot of gratitude for that community for me lately. And I kind of wish when I was in school that was emphasized a little more. I almost wish that there was a course that's only ever taught by someone who has graduated within 5 years of school, because they're
so helpful,
so close to what it's actually like right now, because the industry is so rapidly evolving all the time, and they can actually speak to like what it's actually like to try to break in as an independent filmmaker, whatever the position. Because I wish there was somebody that could really emphasize that importance of community. Tell me a little bit more about the inspiration behind Together, and what motivated you to tell this story through this kind of genre or aesthetic.
I had been with my partner for a little bit, and I wanted to make something that cost as little as possible, but I wanted to make a science fiction, and also thinking about these limitations that I had set on myself, which was going to be like one location, 1 or 2 actors, And then I just was like, well, what would be even harder? And I was like, what if they were just in one room? And that's when I came up with the concept of like just having them in this bubble and the entire action there. So I think it was very born out of like practicality that I needed something small. But I think I was also just going for, and this is in the color palette and definitely in like the art direction, you know, very cozy and intimate, and trying to kind of show, I don't know, ethereal sci-fi in an apartment.
With How I Got to the Moon by Subway, idea in my head, this thought that kept recurring, that the journey of you know, stepping into your identity felt very much like an odyssey for me. Very expansive and mysterious, and as scary as it was at times, it was also a thrill. The scenario that I was interested in depicting was this kind of slice of life of a doctor's appointment. At the end of the day, that's like all it is. Right. I was drawn to the idea that sometimes these mundane things, especially that we go through as queer people, can feel very vast, and there's a lot going on internally that's really hard to describe, and like that like real world kind of terminology and visuals kind of don't do it justice.
I'll ask you, what was the best piece of advice that you've received related to filmmaking?
Toby Brooks, who is a manager of the Sundance Ignite Fellowship. I was at Sundance for the first time as a filmmaker with a film at the festival. I produced a short film called Lavender, and I was really, really anxious and intimidated, and had immense imposter syndrome. I was also at a time in my life where it was just like a very weird dichotomy happening, where I was in this essentially a literal snow globe that is Park City at the Sundance Film Festival, but I had no money. I had no like job prospect. Like I was just like in a really not great place in my life, like trying to afford living in New York and doing this thing that I really wanted to do. And yet here I was at the Sundance Film Festival with like a film in the festival, and I don't know, I was just going through it. And he just took me aside and like looked in the eyes. He was like, Tyler, you need to take a deep breath, and you need to remember that you are what you're looking for, and none of these things, these like career like rites of passage, like none of this stuff matters. Like you need to just like come back to you. You are what you're looking for. You're an artist, and you will, you know, continue to create things and continue to like screen them at festivals and whatnot, and some things are going to be successful, some things are not. But it just kind of like motivated me to just like come back to myself for a second and not get too in my head about like this very overwhelming ecosystem of film, independent film in particular, and trying to have a stable path forward. What advice have you received?
Oh, my professor, Catherine Lindbergh, who was a great writer, and who knows just so much about short form. I feel like at NYU they teach you how to do features, and then they have you make shorts, and they don't really teach you how to do shorts. And she was definitely someone who cared about shorts and cared about the format, and just so like genuinely. And I think I gave her a script once, and she was like, what is dramatic about this for you? Explained it to her. And it was something that I had definitely written the script with like a festival film in mind, you know? And it was obvious. You know, I answered like, well, here's the dramatic action, and here, you know. And she's like, no, when you're on set, like what in this are you going to be able to say like, this is, you know, what I'm putting on film? And that made me rethink about how I had a time where I was very anxious about, well, now I'm spending money on a short. I need it to do well. I need it to go to festivals. I needed, you know, people in good positions to like it. And then I think the piece of advice was like, well, if you're thinking about all that, then your voice isn't going to come through as a filmmaker. Yeah. And then nobody's going to program your film because you don't have a voice as a filmmaker.
Don't panic. You are what you're looking for. And don't think about trying to make a festival film, because
yes, definitely.
festivals just want to hear your original, unique voice.